Hi, Congregation Beth Am. It's Rabbi Rosenberg here, and I want to talk about something that's going on in the news more than a little bit. It's Wednesday, June 24th today, and that means that as of today, all of Hillsborough County has a requirement to wear masks when out in public, with various exceptions and so on. I believe that means that now all of our counties and cities have something like this. We're all being required to wear masks in public, and I've seen a lot of debate online, and by debate I mostly mean snark, but this kind of discussion about whether or not we should be required to wear masks and whether or not we should wear masks or fight this and those sorts of things. Now, I'll admit, I've seen this online. I haven't really seen much, if any, from our members or even just people that I know personally. So what I'm about to say might be a little bit of preaching to the choir, but I think it's an important moment of preaching to the choir, if nothing else, because I want to make the argument for wearing a mask, but from a specifically Jewish point of view. And I'm usually very cautious about trying to make a claim that Judaism supports one particular policy over another, because that's usually a pretty fraught argument. But I think this one is pretty clear. You see, Judaism is the Jewish legal system, like any legal system, has different principles. And those principles often come into conflict. In fact, those are the most interesting legal cases in general, is not when it's a right versus a wrong, so much as one right versus another right, one principle versus another. And the work of a legal system is often to figure out which principle wins out in any various case. And a lot of the Talmud, a lot of Jewish legal literature is doing exactly that. For example, we are required to not work on Shabbat, that's well known. We're also required to take care of animals, specifically to not let pain happen to animals. That's called Sar Ba'alei Chayim, pain to living creatures. And so the rabbis ask, well, what happens on Shabbat if you're a dairy farmer? If you don't milk your cow, then that will cause pain to the cow. But if you milk the cow, you're performing prohibited work on Shabbat, so what do? And the answer is that Sar Ba'alei Chayim Docher HaShabbat, that the law, the principle about not letting animals suffer, cancels out the law of Shabbat in that case. So it's not that Shabbat's not important, it's just that this other principle is more important. Well, there's one principle that's always been understood by the rabbis to be the ultimate trump card. It's the top principle, and that's pekuach nefesh. It means saving a life. And just under it, they call it safek pekuach nefesh, which means doubtful or possible potential saving of a life. And the rabbis believe, and believed thousands of years ago and still believe now, that saving a life is the most important thing that we can do. In fact, they say there's only three things that you cannot do in order to save someone's life. You cannot murder an innocent person. So if you have to kill that person to save that person, you don't get to do that. You can't commit any of the sexual transgressions, adultery, and so on. And you can't commit public idolatry. That one gets trickier in modern times, but be that as it may, the idea is that there's almost nothing that we don't have to do in order to save a life. And again, that 1A category of doubtful, there's almost nothing that we aren't supposed to do, that we aren't required to do if there's a possibility of saving a life. Now, take that with masks. Here's what we know. There's been lots of debate about how effective masks are, and early on in the pandemic, there were maybe some opinions that it wasn't effective at all or even dangerous. The science is pretty clear that wearing a mask reduces your likelihood of spreading the disease, and this disease is potentially fatal. So wearing a mask means that you might not be infecting someone, and therefore you might not be killing them, potentially more than just a single person. Now, we don't know for sure. Most of us aren't sick, and we know there's about a 2-week incubation period, which means that we might feel good even when we're not actually healthy. We might still be very contagious. We know that there are asymptomatic carriers, and we just don't know. But what's the counter principle? What's the downside, right? If there's a downside to wearing a mask, it's a bit of discomfort. It's maybe giving up a tiny bit of our autonomy because someone's telling us that we have to. Well, Judaism is pretty clear that your discomfort is my discomfort is not more important than not risking someone else's life. My bit of autonomy in deciding whether or not I want to wear a mask is irrelevant in the face of potentially killing someone. I don't want to seem hyperbolic, and I'm not. I don't tend to be a panicky person. I don't walk around sure that everybody is infected, but I am walking around sure that somebody is infected, which means that there is a small but real chance that I am infected. I am willing to do almost anything to not kill someone. I'm willing to do almost anything to make sure that people can live. And I don't think it's likely. I know that if I walk around without a mask, probably people will be fine, but probably isn't good enough when we're talking about life and death. So I know that this time is hard, and I know that frustration bubbles up in so many ways. But hopefully, we can remember that putting on a mask is a small but powerful act of love, and a small but powerful act of morality. Maybe every time we put one on, rather than get frustrated about how uncomfortable it might be, we can just thank God for giving us an opportunity to maybe save somebody else's life. Stay safe, everybody.